Hey, Paul? I think I found a place to live!
Oh, that's fantastic!
It's got some lame anime posters and the bedroom's like a swamp, but I reckon I could be really happy here. I don't know whether to give it a name like one of those English country homes, like Phantom Place, or maybe just The Wicked House.
Quinns, this is my house!
You live in my house?
Yes! No, you can't... I live here, you can't...
Wait, this is perfect. I need some help getting wood.
Sit down. Get ready. Sit down again. Archipelago is one of the best games we've reviewed on this show in a long time.
In a long time.
And it's big.
It's overwhelming, really, and it's complicated.
And kind of confusing, sort of, but it's smart.
It is smart. Well, it's a show-off, really.
And I think we can agree that it brings all the colonists to the yard.
Oh, yes, sir.
When you finish a game of Archipelago, when you pack that box up and you look at it sat there on your shelf, you'll wonder if it's going to burst, if it's going to erupt and shower you with components, because it's just so packed with possibilities.
What we have here is a game of colonization in the South Pacific, offering between 2 and a beefy 5 players the opportunity to build and explore and maybe, just maybe, wring a profit from this dangerous island paradise. And it is dangerous, and it is paradise. Look at that beautiful mountain pass. Oh!
But a little caveat before we begin our review. Archipelago is a board game. It's an abstraction. It's designed for fun. But the theme of colonialism may make some people uncomfortable, and the fact that your colonist population is represented by a little white meeple and the local unrest is represented by a little black meeple will probably make everyone a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, before making your purchase, know that Archipelago glosses over, European colonial history and basically any kind of reality. You can build churches, you can also build golden pyramids, you can hire pirates and thieves. It's all very inoffensive, which is kind of worse since the reality of this setting is that it is offensive. That said, we didn't have a problem with it. We found it occasionally thought-provoking behind all the rainbows and pineapples.
After all, to achieve victory, it's important to explore and exploit the land you find, though you'll do so in a less aggressive way than actually happened in history. You'll start off in the middle of the ocean, staring at a few hexes of dry land, with only a boat and a couple of colonists at your disposal. Then, as you make landfall, you'll find thick forests and exotic fruits and ore deposits, and you can set your colonists to work collecting these, turning them into markets and towns and churches, as well as sending them back to Europe to make a handsome reward, which is great. And it's all about getting an economy going, and that's fine, because economies are sexy and alluring and made out of curvy graphs.
It's all a bit sexy. The map you're exploring, it's sexy that you're hiding your goods and bounty behind screens from everyone else. That's sexy. And the goods that you're collecting, exotic fruit, stones, strange new wood.
Fish? Cattle? Metal?
Yes. So far, so ordinary. Paul and I have been talking about scale. Where is that? Certainly. If you look at Archipelago next to an ordinary-sized reference pineapple, you'll see it's not one of the biggest games we've reviewed. So, let's look at one of the great twists of Archipelago that make it act like some enormous dark sea eel that's twisting on your dinner table and you don't really know where it came from. First off is the fact that this is actually a cooperative game. You're all working together. Every turn there will be a crisis. In the case of this, your employees will want fish, and Europe will want stone. And if you don't solve those crises together, what's going to happen is the anger marker is going to be driven up. And if that ever reaches the colony population marker, the game ends for everybody. And the one feather you have in your cap is that you can all trade resources between yourselves at any point. You can trade money at any point, which makes it a pretty interesting co-op game, except it's not a co-op game. You all have secret objective cards. In the case of this, you will know the person with the most iron will get 3 victory points at the end of the game. The person with the most iron resources, I should say. You'll also know the game will end when a lot of you collectively have built 5 markets. All you can do is build as quickly as you can and keep an eye on your opponents, wondering what they're building. Maybe you could even pay them to find out what their objective is. But how would you know that they're telling the truth? So perhaps at this point you're wondering how Archipelago can work if it's competitive and co-op, and the answer is That's the game. You need to figure out with your friends how much you value victory, how much he values victory, whether you can wall that player off. You might play Archipelago and never once see the end of the game because you and your friends are fighting each other so much. And that's not just okay, that's incredible. You're learning about your friends, you're learning how to play. Oh, incidentally, this is what we call semi-co-op.
Depending upon how much time you have, you can pick objective cards that give you a short, a medium, or a long game, which is lovely, lovely islands, giving you flexibility and variety that you don't always have in a board game. But that's just a hint of how cool Archipelago is on an emotive level. There's also the mechanical level. The game is divided into 6 phases. It's made up of a series of rule islands that sort of sit next to each other in a chain, like a rule sausage. And the meat of the rule sausage is the action phase, where you'll have at least 3 discs and you'll plot them down on a central board to decide what you're going to do this turn. And it works a bit like this.
All right, I'm gonna breed.
I'm gonna get workers.
I'm gonna get pineapples.
I'm gonna get beef.
I'm gonna explore.
I'm gonna build something.
I'm gonna attack someone.
I'm gonna migrate. The question of what order you do things in is a whole game in itself, tied into what's happening on the main board proper. Look here. This is the only source of pineapples on the island. You and your friend have both started claiming this hex. He's built a port. You've built a church. Now, you get to go first, but you don't harvest the pineapple this turn, no. You go and buy some wood on the domestic market. Your friend leaps onto the pineapple, leaving his port. Then on your turn, you spend 1 wood and 1 stone, and you found a town. That gives you total ownership of the hex. Now, not only will everyone need your spoken permission to harvest the pineapple, but you get what you really wanted. Since your friend's port is uninhabited, you get that too. Thanks for playing! Fair enough. This is a mechanic that's known as worker placement. It's quite common in gaming, you may have come across it before, but while in other games it can be a core mechanic, in Archipelago it's only one of many. It's like a single tentacle on a giant gaming octopus that's threatening to envelop you with all its rule, tentacle, other bits.
Let's look at more of those other bits, like that threat of extinction. So as you guys explore the island, you're going to find happy people who were kind of happy before you came along, and you do actually have to find them. Every hex you explore will have a number of tiny little huts, and you count those huts up, and that's how many new workers you've found. And that's great, because the more workers you have, the cheaper they get. Except no, it's not great, because crippling unemployment causes incredible resentment in the colony. Let's say you try and fix that co-op problem and that competitive problem by saying, guys, don't worry about it. I'm going to hire every single one of these guys. You've made a terrible mistake, you fool! But we'll get back to you in a minute.
But for now, let's look at these 2 boards. They represent the value of goods on the domestic market and on the international market, goods that you're shipping back home to Europe. And naturally, as you flood the market with tokens, everything becomes less valuable. But there's more going on than that, because as you start commercial fishing here, you'll be pulling fish by the boatload out of the sea, leaving them to rot on the port side, and just increasing resentment among the residents. It's not even that, though, that makes everyone unhappy. And the thing about Archipelago is that, like all good co-op games, you never really know when it's going to suddenly deliver you a horrible haymaker, a hammer blow surprise.
Whew. Those were some wicked beans,
Those
Paul.
were really good. Those were has-beens.
Hey, let me take those bowls.
Thank you.
Is there any dessert?
Oh, no, there isn't. Oh, for This is what a rebelling worker looks like. You remember how you're going to buy all those workers last turn? And you thought you're going to be really cool with all your workers. And Quinn said you're not going to be really cool with all your workers. Well, now a crisis has happened and the workers want beef and you don't have any beef. But for every beef that you don't have, 4 workers are going to get angry that you don't have a beef. And all the other players are discussing how they can get you beef because you can't buy any beef because you bought all the workers. And you've got a beef problem. They've got a beef with you and you thought you were clever. But the problem now is this track here where everyone gets angry. That doesn't spike by a point. That spikes by a point for every single unhappy, unbeefed worker that you have in your stupid collection of worker beefy people. And this is the exciting thing. This is what makes Archipelago. This is what makes the game a must-buy for us, because even though you have your own personal ambition, you have this collective responsibility. It's almost like being an adult.
Almost, but not quite, because you might be playing with the sympathizer card. One player might be dealt this, and if that's the case, they will win if there's a violent uprising. Just imagine. You are running out of stone, there's a stone crisis, and you say, I'm not spending any stone, even though the other players know you have some, and all your meeples fall down. The other players hold a war room meeting, and they say, okay, I can pay you for some stone, and then you can use some stone from the market, and they ship whole boatloads of stone, standing all your meeples back up, and you use that stone, and you build some towns, because at the end of the game, it turns out you weren't the sympathizer at all. You just had an objective to build some towns, and you're a bit of a c***. Also, you might end up playing with the pacifist card. You don't know. The pacifist player will secretly gain a huge deluge of victory points if there is a total of 10 pips between the anger marker and the population at the end of the game. Now, continuing to expand this fun laterally is the very last part of Archipelago we've yet to cover, and that's evolution cards. Come this way, come this way. See these cards? These are bonuses you'll be able to buy at the end of each game turn that offer just incredible flavour. You can buy a nice theatre, you could make some irrigation canals for maximum pineapple, Pope, yeah. You can buy the concept of a dictatorship, or, now the barbarian card. In a game that's otherwise a bit fluffy, this card might end up defining your entire game if it makes an appearance, because there is so much going on here. The barbarian lets you put tokens over any area that you arrive in, scorching the very earth and claiming those resources for yourself. You have a beef monopoly like over here, well, you can keep it. So, now famously, I don't actually like games that lead to you staring down at your own little engine playing your own game. What's great about Archipelago though, is that some of these powers have coloured arrows, and a coloured arrow doesn't mean just that you can tap it sideways and use it. It means anyone can tap it sideways and use it. And they'll just have to pay that cost to you instead, which is marvellous, frankly.
Never before have we encountered a game that toys so much with the relationship between you and all the other players. It's almost as if the game were playing you. You'll have these early game turns where you're exploring, you're all doing what you want, you don't care what you find and how many huts you encounter, and someone finds all the beef and someone finds pineapple and you trade them. You're having a lovely time, you're being capitalist, and then a crisis hits and all of a sudden you've got to come together, you've got to work together to solve that problem. One guy says, oh yeah, I'll build the amphitheatre, I'll put on a spectacle that'll make everyone happy. Someone else says, oh, I've got churches, I'll activate the bishop will bishop in the churches, and that makes everyone really happy, and you laugh. Everything's fine, you go back to being singular again, and someone gets grumpy and goes, well, I think you should give me the pineapples cheaper now that you have, because I built the amphitheatre and that prevented everything from going wrong. And you'll just muddy the game with the grudges all the time, and that's really what Archipelago is about.
It is just incredible how all of the mechanical systems just interweave. There's so much going on in this game, and yet it's like electrical engineering or something. Everything just runs parallel and everything affects everything else.
It's incredibly clever as a system, as a whole series of interlinked sort of things to consider about and decisions to make and stuff to play with, and yet at the same time with all the boards and everything that's happening, it's all fairly kind of understandable.
Yeah, understandable. And yet, it's all about surprises, you know? It's like, well, you just don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know if you're going to get the opportunity to build a cathedral that's going to change everything,
okay,
or if Beef Island will be valuable.
That comes from all these people, from the players, because the game lets you play as well. It gives you the freedom to kind of do what you want to do when you want to. Do you want to make a negotiation right now based on something? Why not?
Yeah, it gives you the freedom to play.
It lets you be you.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Really it's almost a role-playing game in a way, you know? If you care about running a nice colony or being nice, then that's fine. You can do that. But honestly, the aesthetics of the thing, look at this volcano. But okay, so a little secret is that when we do these video reviews and try to put it down, these board setups, they're not, you know, real. Like, we just we build something that looks like a board game so we can review and demonstrate the pieces. But when we were filming this tonight, I actually found myself enjoying building an island. That's the first time that's happened. Just enjoying playing with the... Paul. Yeah.
What happened, Quinns? Do you remember anything?
What?
Are you alright?
Who is it?
What happened?
Who are you?
You'll be fine, I'm sure. Have some more wine. Have
Oh,
some more.
oh,
Have some.
oh,
Have some.
oh.
Have some.
Paul!
You review board games, remember?
No, I'm an adult!
You review board games.
No!
With me.
No!
With me.
No!
With me.